Some men fall apart when the truth hits them. I'm not that kind of man. My name is Raymond Holloway. I am 64 years old, and I spent the better part of 4 decades building something real, something solid, the kind of life that has not come easy and does not fall apart without a fight. I grew up in a small town outside of Memphis, Tennessee, the son of a man who fixed other people's cars for a living and never once complained about it. He taught me 2 things. Work hard. Pay attention. I did both. I live in a brick house on Clearwater Drive in Franklin, Tennessee. Nice street. Quiet neighbors. The kind of place where the grass stays cut and people smile at you on Sunday mornings because it costs nothing to be polite. I had a wife named Diane, a business I had grown from nothing, and a life that from the outside looked like everything a man could want. From the inside, it was something very different. Welcome to Daddy's Revenge. Grab something cold to drink, sit all the way back, and understand this. Every person in this story had a chance to do right. They saw that chance, and they walked right past it. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you never miss a story. Drop a comment and tell us what you think. You're going to want to stay for all of this. On a Monday night in the middle of September, at exactly 11:02 in the evening, my wife Diane walked through the back door of our house on Clearwater Drive. She had been gone since 7 in the morning. 16 missed calls from me. 11 text messages. Not one single reply. She came in through the kitchen, set her bag down on the counter like it was any other night, looked across the room at me, sitting at the table, and smiled. Not a sorry smile. Not a tired smile. The kind of smile that tells you a person is proud of something. I was eating a bowl of rice and chicken I had made myself that evening because I had given up waiting for her to come home for dinner. I looked at her, said nothing, and put another spoonful in my mouth. She leaned against the kitchen counter, crossed her arms, and said, "You want to know where I was today, Raymond?" I set my spoon down, looked at her steady. "I had not heard from you since this morning, Diane. I think I deserve at least a phone call." She smiled wider at that, like my calmness was something she wanted to poke at, like she was hoping to find a raw nerve underneath it. "I was with Marcus," she said. Marcus Webb, her manager at the marketing firm in Brentwood where she had worked for the last 6 years. "We got a hotel room," she said, "and honestly, Raymond, I do not feel bad about it. Not even a little bit." The kitchen fan hummed above us. The refrigerator clicked on. A car passed slowly outside on Clearwater Drive, headlights sweeping across the wall. I picked my spoon back up. "Your food is on the stove if you are hungry," I said. Here is the thing about a man who has already prepared. He does not panic when a moment arrives. He does not shake. He does not throw things or yell or make a scene to the neighbors here through the walls. Diane had been waiting for a detonation. She had written the script in her head on the drive home. She had rehearsed the whole dramatic explosion. What she got was a 64-year-old man finishing his dinner. She did not know what to do with that. Her smile flickered. "Just for a second. That is all you have to say?" she asked. "You are not even going to react?" I looked at her. Would it change anything? She made a sound in her throat, half laugh and half frustration, and walked upstairs without another word. I sat at that table for another 15 minutes. Finished my rice. Washed my bowl. Dried it with the dish towel that hangs on the oven handle. Put it back exactly where it belongs. Then I walked out to my truck in the driveway, a black Chevy Silverado that I have driven for 7 years, sat in the passenger seat in the dark, and gave myself 5 minutes. 5 minutes to feel everything I was not going to feel inside that house. 5 minutes, and there was only about next steps. Let me tell you something about Marcus Webb. Marcus was 47 years old, recently separated from his wife of 12 years. The kind of man who wore his cologne too heavy and laughed too loud at his own jokes. He had hired Diane as a senior account manager 6 years ago, right around the time she had decided she wanted something bigger than the business she and I had built together. He drove a leased BMW he could not quite afford and had a habit of taking credit for other people's ideas and meetings. I had met him twice. Once at a company dinner, once at a charity golf event. Both times he had shaken my hand too firmly, the way insecure men always do, like pressure is the same as substance. The affair had been going on longer than that one night. I was already certain of that. You do not walk into a house at 11 in the evening and confess with that level of confidence unless you have been somewhere long enough to stop feeling guilty about it. The signs had been piling up for almost 2 years. New passwords on her phone that used to have none. Weekend work trips to cities that her colleagues did not seem to know about when I asked careful questions at social events. A quietness between us that was not the comfortable kind, not the kind two people who have been together for 30 years earn. It was the other kind, the kind that has weight to it. I had noticed. I had said nothing. I had been making preparations instead. Diane and I had started our business together in 2007. Holloway Home Solutions. We built it from a small handyman operation into a full residential renovation and property services company serving most of Williamson County. At our highest point, we had 38 active clients, a crew of 9, and a name that people in Franklin trusted without being asked to. It was mine in terms of the tools and the labor, hers in terms of the books and the contracts. On paper, it was equal. That paper would become very important very soon. What Diane did not know was that 18 months before that Monday night in September, I had sat down with an attorney in downtown Franklin named Patricia Owens, a quiet but precise woman who had handled business law for 20-some years and had the kind of steady eyes that made you feel like your problem was the most manageable thing she had seen all week. I had gone to see her because of a conversation I had with my oldest friend, a man named Curtis Bell. Curtis and I had grown up together in Memphis. He had moved to Nashville in his 30s and opened an electrical contracting business. We had lunch every few weeks at a barbecue place on 4th Avenue that neither of us could probably afford as much as we went. It was a Thursday in March, the year before all of this, and I had told Curtis what I suspected. Not what I knew for certain yet, just what I felt in the part of a man that does not lie to him. You think it is Marcus? Curtis had asked, pulling apart a rib like the question was easy. I think it has been somebody for a while, I said. I do not know enough yet to say for certain. Curtis had put the rib down, wiped his hands, and looked at me the way a man looks at a friend who has already made a decision but has not said the words yet. So what are you going to do? I had taken a long sip of my sweet tea and watched the lunch crowd on the sidewalk outside through the window. All those people moving in every direction like they had some urgent place to be. I'm going to find out the whole truth, I said. And then I'm going to make sure that when I decide to move, everything I've built is standing on solid ground. Curtis did not say much after that, but he remembered it. He would tell me later that that was the moment he knew I had already become a different man than the one Diane thought she was married to. By the time Diane came home that Monday night in September, here is what was already true. Holloway Home Solutions, the real Holloway Home Solutions, the one with the active client contracts, the operating accounts, the crew payroll, the equipment, the 17 years of reputation and relationships I had built with my own hands. That company had been quietly and legally restructured over the prior 12 months. Patricia Owens had helped me establish a new operating entity. My name was on it. Diane's name was not. The original company, the one she was listed as co-owner on, was still there. It was clean. It was real. It was also empty. 3 clients, 2 of whom had not needed services in over a year. A company van with 230,000 miles on it and a crack in the windshield. A business checking account with $211 in it. The real business, every contract, every piece of equipment, every working relationship, every dollar of future revenue had moved. She had been co-owner of a shell for 12 months and had not once asked to look at the books. Not once. That told me everything I needed to know about how much she valued what we had built together. I'm not a harm man. I want to be clear about that. I was raised in a house where my mother cooked from scratch every evening and my father said please and thank you even to strangers, and I carried those things with me my whole life. I coached Little League for 11 years, even after my own sons were grown. I served on the board of a local food bank in Franklin for 6 years. I brought my neighbors food when they were sick. I believed in doing right by people. I still do. But I also watched what happened to my Uncle Gerald when his marriage fell apart in the early 90s. Gerald had built a heating and cooling business over 20 years. Did not protect himself. Did not prepare. Walked out of that divorce with his truck, his tools, and a debt that took him another decade to climb out of. He sat across from me at a family cookout 2 summers after the divorce, looked me in the eye, and said, "Raymond, if you ever feel it coming, do not wait. Protect what you built. I was 28 years old when he said that. I did not know I would need those words 36 years later. I knew them by heart when I did. The joint household account, the one Diane used for groceries, her Thursday evening yoga classes, her standing appointment at the salon on Columbia Avenue, had a balance, as of the Friday before her confession, of $0.32. I had moved everything to a new account in my name only at a separate bank on the prior Wednesday afternoon. Careful, unhurried, the way a man handles something important. The 32 cents I left because the account needed something in it, and because I had always had a particular sense of humor about details. The real savings, the kind that come from 30 years of working too hard and spending carefully, that money had moved in pieces over 5 months. Every transfer had a documented reason. Every move had a paper trail. Patricia had gone over all of it with the focus of someone who understood that clean records are the difference between a difficult divorce and an impossible one. Everything you did has a legitimate basis, she had told me the month before. The restructuring is documented as a standard business decision. The account transfers are traceable and explainable. If this goes to court, and it likely will, you are standing on concrete, not on sand. I went back inside from the truck at 11:47 that Monday night. The house was quiet. The lights upstairs were off. Diane had gone to sleep. She had actually gone to sleep, the deep, easy sleep of a woman who believed she had done the hardest part by saying the words out loud, and that tomorrow would sort itself out the way tomorrows usually did. I stood in the kitchen for a moment, looked at the dark granite countertops we had picked out together in 2016. The framed photos on the wall by the hallway, vacation pictures, birthday pictures, our younger son Marcus at his college graduation. The coat rack by the side door where I had hung my jacket every evening for 16 years. Then I went to the storage room off the laundry area and pulled out 4 bags I had packed 6 days earlier. My clothes, folded and organized. Every important document with my name on it. Originals, all of them, in a waterproof accordion folder. My grandfather's pocket watch, which had sat on my dresser for 11 years. My father's Bible, which I had kept since the funeral. Those 2 things were going with me, no matter what else happened in that house. 3 quiet trips to the truck. The last one I stood for a moment in the driveway and looked up at the house on Clearwater Drive the way you look at something you already know you are saying goodbye to. At 12:24 in the morning on a Tuesday, in September, I backed out of that driveway for the last time. I did not leave a letter. I did not send a message. There was nothing to say that had not already been said from her side of the kitchen that evening. When Diane woke up on Tuesday morning and came downstairs expecting the house to be exactly as she had left it, she was going to find something very different. And the particular kind of smile she had worn on her way in the night before was going to be very difficult to hold onto when she started understanding what was missing. There is a particular feeling in a house when the person who built most of it has taken everything that matters and left. It is not the loud feeling. It is the quiet one. The one that presses against you from all sides and makes things that were familiar look wrong, like your eyes cannot quite trust what they are seeing. Diane discovered that feeling at 7:48 on a Tuesday morning in September. I know the time precisely because my older son, Derek, who lives about 20 minutes away in Brentwood, had agreed to drive past the house at a specific time and send me a message. He texted me at 7:49. "Light just came on downstairs, Dad." I was already an hour south, sitting in a window booth at a Waffle House off Interstate 65, eating scrambled eggs and white toast, and watching my phone like it was the most important screen in the world. I want to say something honest about how I felt that morning. It was not the feeling people imagine when they think about a man getting back at someone who wronged him. It was not warm. It was not satisfying in any simple way. It felt like the morning after a very long and necessary surgery. The relief that it was done. The exhaustion of what it cost to get there. The quiet certainty that it could not have gone any other way. Derek texted again at 8:02. She just opened the garage door, looked out, closed it. Then at 8:16, she's on the phone, pacing in the front room. I typed back, "You can go, son. Thank you." He sent me back a single word. "Careful." Derek is a man of very few words. He gets that from me. The call came at 8:31. I let it ring 3 times. Not because I wanted to make a point. Because I was finishing my toast, and I had decided some time ago that I was done letting other people's urgency become my emergency. Raymond. Her voice was the control one. The one she used in difficult client meetings at the firm when something had come apart and she needed to appear like it had not. Where are you? Good morning, Diane. Do not do that. Where are your things? They are with me. Silence. 5 seconds. 10. Then, because she was nothing if not composed when she needed to be. Okay. You needed space after last night. I understand that, and I want you to know I'm willing to talk about this because what I said was wrong and I should not have said it that way, and 30 years is not something you just... Diane, I said, quiet and even. She stopped. Look at the checking account, I said. Then call me back. I hung up. I went back to my eggs. She did not call back in 5 minutes. She did not call back in 10. I knew exactly what she was doing. She was at the kitchen counter with her laptop open, logging into the bank's website, entering the account number, waiting for the screen to load, seeing the number, telling herself the bank had made some kind of error, calling the customer service line, entering the account number again, waiting, hearing the same number again. Derek texted at 8:51. She just got in her car. I sent Patricia Owens a message. She replied in 2 minutes. I expected your message today. Everything is in order. We are ready. Call me after 9:30. Patricia Owens had spent more than 2 decades watching people make the worst decisions of their lives and then trying to manage the consequences. She had handled my restructuring with the focus of a woman who understood that the details other people overlook are exactly the ones that matter most when you're sitting in front of a judge. She had told me back in July that the window between Diane discovering the situation and Diane hiring an attorney was going to be short. She is sharp, Patricia had said, reviewing the documents I had brought to her office. Operationally sharp. She will move fast. She will... I had agreed. What do you think she would try to take first? The business, Patricia said. That is where she will think the value is. I had nodded. And when she looks... Patricia had set the papers down and looked at me over her reading glasses. She will find exactly what you left for her to find. There had been a pause. Which is... a company with 3 clients and $200. I had said. Patricia had smiled, just slightly, the professional smile of a woman who had seen a great many things but appreciated when a client had done their homework. Raymond, she said, you are one of my more interesting clients. Diane drove that Tuesday morning to an attorney named Stephen Polk, who had an office on Main Street in Franklin above a real estate agency. Stephen Polk was 60 years old, former litigation attorney, with a reputation as an aggressive negotiator who made up in stubbornness what he lacked in flexibility. I found out later he had taken her call at 9 in the morning and had her in his office by 10:15. My younger son, Brandon, who worked as a project manager for a construction firm in Nashville and drove that stretch of Main Street every morning, spotted Diane's silver Lexus in the lot outside Polk's building at 10:20 and sent me a photo without me asking him to. He texted 3 words underneath it. She found somebody. I texted back too. So did I. What Stephen Polk was about to discover when he started pulling records on Holloway Home Solutions was a very clean, very well-documented, and very empty company. The original LLC had Diane's name on it. It had always had Diane's name on it. It also had 3 inactive clients, a van with a cracked windshield, and $211 in checking account. The new entity, the one where the actual business lived, every contract, every relationship, every dollar of future revenue, that company did not have Diane's name anywhere on it. Not on the filing. Not on the operating agreement. Not on the bank accounts. He would look for it. He would look hard. He would find exactly what I had left him to find. Patricia called me at 9:47. She retained Stephen Polk. She said, no preamble, no small talk. He's going to come into business. That is always the first move. He will pull the LLC records, and when he does, he will find the original entity, properly documented, co-owned, and worth approximately $211. I could hear the measured satisfaction in her voice, like a chess player watching an opponent reach for exactly the piece they expected them to touch. He is also going to raise dissipation of marital assets, she said. He will argue that you moved money to cut her out. Can he make that stick? He can make the argument, proving it is a different challenge entirely. Every transfer you made is documented with a business purpose attached to it. The restructuring was done 18 months ago, well before any legal action, well before any formal separation. Your records are, she paused, choosing the word precisely, meticulous. I grew up watching my father keep every receipt in a shoebox under his workbench, I said. He said a man who cannot prove what he did might as well not have done it. Patricia made a small sound that I understood was the closest thing she had to a laugh during a business call. Your father was a wise man. I told her he was. I drove back north at noon, not to Clearwater Drive. I had taken a room at an extended stay hotel on Murfreesboro Road near the airport. Clean, simple, $200 a week, the kind of place where nobody asks questions and the coffee in the lobby is always hot. Room 208. I had paid 2 weeks in advance. Curtis met me there for lunch. He brought food from a soul food place on Jefferson Street in Nashville that neither of us had visited in too long. Fried catfish, macaroni and cheese, cornbread. He set it all on the small table by the window and sat on the edge of the bed while I ate at the desk the way a man eats when he is not quite hungry, but knows he needs the food anyway. She called her sister already, Curtis said, pulling the foil off his food. How do you know that? Because her sister called my wife. And my wife called me before I left the house this morning asking if I had heard from you. He shook his head slowly. Word moves fast in this city. What is she saying? That you had some kind of episode. That you left without warning in the middle of the night, and she is worried about your state of mind. That she thinks you might be having some kind of mental health situation. I took a bite of cornbread and thought about that for a moment. She is building the story, I said. She needs people to hear her version before they hear mine. That is exactly what she is doing, Curtis said. She is painting you as unstable. Man who snapped. Wife who is holding it together. Classic move. He looked at me steady. You ready for people to believe that for a while? I looked out the window of room 208. A woman was walking a dog in the parking lot below. A delivery truck was backing carefully into a spot near the entrance. The afternoon sun was flat and pale the way September sun gets when it is deciding whether to stay warm or let autumn come on. Was I ready for it? I had spent 64 years becoming a man who did not need the room's approval to know what was true. My father had taught me that a man who does the right thing quietly does not need anyone to applaud while he does it. The applause comes later when the record speaks for itself. Let her build it, I said. Every story has a second chapter. Curtis nodded slowly, the way he does when he is thinking more than he is saying. You have something else, he said. Not a question. He knew me too well for it to be a question. Curtis, I said, do you remember back in 2020 when I mentioned a man named Roy Gaines? Curtis looked up from his plate. Roy Gaines was a retired investigator who had spent 20 years doing insurance fraud and background work before going out on his own. He ran a small practice out of an office in a converted house on 8th Avenue in Nashville. I had used him once before for a vendor dispute in the business. Curtis had been the one who gave me his number. You hired Roy? Curtis said. His voice had gone quiet. 16 months ago, I said. Same week I first called Patricia. Curtis set his fork down. Raymond, what did Roy find? I reached into the inner pocket of my jacket and set a large brown envelope on the table between us. I did not open it. I had read enough times to know every word of it without looking. The affair with Marcus Webb did not start recently, I said. It started 3 years and 4 months ago. But Roy also found something else. Something that had nothing to do with Marcus Webb. Curtis looked at the envelope the way a man looks at something he is not sure he wants to know about. Something else like what? He said quietly. Something financial, I said. Roy found a pattern of payments out of the Holloway Home Solutions operating account over a period of almost 3 years to a vendor called Pinnacle Consulting Services. Invoices that looked legitimate. Services that were described as operation support and project coordination. Except there was no Pinnacle Consulting Services. No office. No employees. No services rendered. Not a single one. Curtis stared at me. She was taking money from the company, he said. She was taking money from our company, I said. Which means she was technically taking from herself, too. Which tells you just how certain she was that I would never look closely enough to find it. He was quiet for a long moment. Then how much? 2 years and 10 months of payments, I said. for $100. The room was very still after that. The delivery truck outside had finished parking. The woman with the dog had gone back inside. The afternoon sat quiet around us the way afternoons do when something important has just been said and there is nothing to add to it. Curtis left at 2:30. I sat in room 208 for a while after he was gone, watching the parking lot, watching the light change on the pavement outside. My phone buzzed at 4:12 that afternoon. It was not Diane. It was not Patricia. It was a number I did not have saved. Nashville area code. I answered on the second ring. Mr. Holloway. A woman's voice, professional and direct. My name is Lisa Chun. I am an investigative reporter with a Nashville banner. I have been looking into financial irregularities at Web Strategic Marketing in Brentwood, specifically involving a pattern of fraudulent vendor payments connected to a company called Pinnacle Consulting Services. I believe you may have some knowledge relevant to what I have been looking into. I sat very still in the chair by the window of room 208. I had not called Lisa Chun. I had not contacted anyone at the banner, which meant the tip had come from someone else. And the number of people who knew about Pinnacle Consulting Services at that precise moment was extremely small. Me, Patricia, Roy Gaines, Curtis as of that afternoon, and one other person, Marcus Webb, the same man who had spent 3 years and 4 months having an affair with my wife, had apparently decided that when the situation started closing in on him, he was going to be the first one out the door. He had called a reporter before I ever had a reason to. Mr. Holloway, Lisa, Chun said again. Are you available to meet? I looked out the window at the parking lot of the hotel on Murfreesboro Road. Yes, I said. Tell me when and where. We met the next morning at a coffee shop on 5th Avenue in downtown Nashville, 3 blocks from the banner's offices. Lisa Chun was younger than her voice had suggested, maybe 35, sharp eyes, a notepad and a recorder both already on the table when I arrived. The way reporters who have been doing this long enough do not waste any time with setup. I sat down across from her, ordered a black coffee, and put Roy Gaines's envelope on the table before she could ask me a single question. I want to say something before we go any further, I said. I'm not here because I want to harm anyone. I am here because my name was on a business that was used to process fraudulent payments, and I will not have my name attached to something I did not know about and did not authorize. She opened the envelope, read it without speaking for almost 5 minutes, then set the last page down and looked up at me. How long have you had this? I commissioned the investigation 16 months ago, I said. Did your wife know you had been looking into this? No. Does she know you are here right now? Diane has not known where I have been for the last 40 hours. She's been occupied with other things. Lisa Chun almost smiled at that. Almost. One more question, she said. The restructuring of your business. When did that happen and why? 18 months ago, I said. It was a standard operational restructuring, fully documented, with a legitimate business purpose and entirely unrelated to any of this. She nodded, closed the envelope, and slid it back toward me across the table. I will need certified copies. Patricia Owens' office on 5th Avenue will have them ready by noon if you want to call ahead. She stopped writing and looked up. You already arranged that this morning? I picked up my coffee cup and looked at her over the rim. Ms. Chun, I said, I called my attorney 18 months ago. I was back in room 208 on Wednesday morning when Patricia sent me the link. I was sitting on the edge of the bed in a clean shirt with a hotel coffee cooling on the nightstand beside me. The piece was measured in its headline the way good journalism tends to be, but the content inside it was not measured at all. Lisa Chun had worked quickly and she had worked thoroughly. The story detailed the Pinnacle Consulting Services payments in full. Fraudulent invoices, wire transfers to an account that did not correspond to any registered business entity. A pattern that had run for nearly 3 years inside Web Strategic Marketing. The story named the firm prominently. It named Marcus Webb by name. And in the third paragraph, with the kind of careful precision that good reporters deploy when the facts are strong enough to speak on their own, it named the person who had authorized and processed the payments on the Holloway Home Solutions side. Diane Marie Holloway. Her full name. In the Nashville banner. I read it 4 times. Then I put my phone face down on the nightstand, sat quietly for about 2 minutes, and called Curtis. You see it, Curtis said before I could even say his name. I saw it. The whole street is talking. Brandon texted me this morning. Derek called me last night before the story even went up because he heard it was coming. I sat with that for a moment. What are they saying about Diane? Curtis's voice dropped a little. Stephen Polk withdrew from her case yesterday evening. His office called her around 7 last night. Conflict of interest, they said. His assistant told someone I know that he was not comfortable continuing given what was about to become public. I understood that immediately. Polk had been billing Diane to fight me for a business that as of 18 months ago had been legally and carefully moved beyond her reach. And now his client had her name in a newspaper connected to financial fraud. A smart attorney knows exactly when the ground has shifted under him. She had no attorney. She had no account. She had a company worth $211 and a van with a cracked windshield. And her name was in the paper. What does she do now? Curtis asked. That, I said, is entirely her problem. The divorce was finalized 9 weeks later in a Williamson County courtroom on a cold morning in November that smelled like coffee and old carpet. Diane had found a new attorney, a woman named Janet Morse, who was competent and professional and had inherited a case with almost no leverage left to argue from. The house on Clearwater Drive sold in 26 days. After the payoff on the mortgage and the split on the equity, Diane walked away with $68,000. A storage unit in Franklin, and the silver Lexus. She kept the Lexus. I kept everything else. Marcus Webb settled with his firm's partners, who had apparently been building their own internal file on the Pinnacle payments for months before Lisa Chin ever called me. He resigned in November. I heard through a mutual contact that he had moved to Charlotte. The Tennessee Department of Commerce and Insurance opened a preliminary review of the Pinnacle Consulting Services payments in December. Patricia told me not to expect it to move quickly. These things take time always. But the file was open. It had Diane's name in it. And in my experience, the files that matter most have a way of staying open until someone answers for what is in them. On the morning the divorce was finalized, I drove back to Clearwater Drive one single time. Not to go inside. The new owners had already replaced the flower boxes on the front porch with something simpler and more modern. And there was a child's bicycle on the front steps that had not been there before. I parked at the far end of the street for about 10 minutes, motor running, watching the neighborhood do what it does on a weekday morning. A man walking to his car with a travel mug. A school bus making its slow stop at the corner. Somebody's cat sitting on a porch railing watching the street with the calm certainty of a creature that has no concerns about anything. I thought about 30 years. About the real parts, the ones that had been good, the early years when we were building something and we both knew it and we both wanted the same thing. About the boys we raised in that house, Derek and Brandon, who both turned out to be better men than I had any right to expect on my own. About my grandfather's pocket watch, which was now on the dresser in my new apartment on Commerce Street in downtown Franklin. 3rd floor, 2 windows facing east, a small desk where I sat in the mornings with my coffee and nothing but my own thoughts for company. I did not feel triumphant sitting in that truck on Clearwater Drive. I want to say that honestly because people hear stories like this and they imagine the ending feels like winning. It does not feel like winning. It feels like standing up after something very long and very heavy and discovering that your legs still hold you. It feels like the particular quiet of a man who saw what was coming, prepared for it with everything he had, and was still standing when it arrived. 64 years old. Still standing. Still here. I put the truck in drive. I pulled away from Clearwater Drive, and I did not look back down the street as I went. I had done what needed doing. I had measured the thing from every side, and when the time came I had made the cut clean. If this story meant something to you, hit that like button and subscribe to Daddy's Revenge for more real stories about real people who chose to stand up for what they built. Thank you for being here. Every single one of you.